Hey, what is up guys, Woo here. So after a long time, I finally decided to make part 2 to a video that I made a while ago, which is what if Midoriya had his parents' quirks. Now, to basically recap the last one, since I know I stuttered and said a lot, so if you guys want to watch it, you can watch it. I'll probably put it at the end of the video, but I mean, I highly recommend you don't, because I stuttered a lot. I'll basically recap the cliff notes of what you need to know for this part in this video. So yeah, what happened in my version of the story, I'm giving Midoriya the best possible outcomes. Now, I want you guys to realize this. This is my interpretation of what would happen, and if you guys have different opinions, I'd love to know, so tell me down in the comment section below. Now to start the recap, in part 1, during the USJ attack, after All Might defeated the Nomu, Midoriya decided to jump in on pure instinct when no one else would, and attempted to save All Might. But the pro heroes came before Midoriya would have been killed by Shigaraki. So, all was happy and good. Also, for those who don't know, I gave Midoriya both of his parents' quirks, which were Fire Breath and to levitate small objects. Now, for the weaknesses of these quirks that I added for the sake of the series was that if Midoriya uses the Fire Breath too often, he would burn his throat. And for levitating small objects, which I forgot to address in part 1 from my memory, was that if he'll get a massive headache if he tries to pull objects too big for him to levitate. And with that, we begin with part 2. Fast forward to the sports festival arc. A few days before the festival begins, All Might pulls Midoriya to the side to talk to him about something. All Might gets straight to the point and asks Midoriya why he jumped to save him when no one else would. Now Midoriya tells All Might the truth, which is that he had no idea why and he just moved on pure instinct. After hearing this, All Might knew what he had to say. All Might shows Midoriya his true form. Midoriya sits there shocked and asks All Might if he was an imposter, but All Might reassures Midoriya and tells him the truth, that he is in fact All Might, and explains to him one for all. After hearing this story, Midoriya asks why All Might is telling him this information. All Might says that he decided that Midoriya is the proper vessel for one for all, since Midoriya has a true hero instinct inside of him, the instinct that doesn't know why he runs into trouble, but moves without thinking to save others, which makes him a true hero. All Might offered the quirk to Midoriya, which he gladly accepts. After eating a piece of All Might's hair, All Might warns him not to use his quirk immediately, and that he doesn't know how to use it yet, and if he goes all out right away, he will seriously injure himself. Now, for those asking why he can just inherit the quirk right away, it is because in part 1, I said that he trained his body to prepare for the entrance exam to try to improve his quirks, so his body's physically fit enough to handle One for All. Now back to the story. With One for All now at his disposal, he trains for the sports festival. All Might pulls him aside a day before the festival begins to remind Midoriya that he shouldn't use One for All until he's absolutely sure that he needs to use his quirks, and should try to refrain from using quirks in general, because since One for All is also an enhancement quirk, he will accidentally activate it and probably hurt himself. Midoriya disregards All Might's concerns and decides to go on ahead to the break rooms and get ready for round 1 of the sports festival. In the break room, Todoroki informs Midoriya that he will take the #1 place in the sports festival from all the students without using his fire side. And with that, the foot race begins. Midoriya gets to a running start using his fire, but he notices that he didn't mean to shoot out this much fire and burns his throat, which causes him to remember All Might's warning and decides not to use his quirk in the race because he doesn't understand his limitations yet. And the rest of the race plays out the exact same. Midoriya gets first place and has 10 million points on his head. And before the cavalry battle is about to begin, Midoriya goes to Recovery Girl to get his throat healed up. Midoriya runs into All Might in the room, and All Might asks Midoriya why he didn't use his quirk enough during the race, and he tells All Might the truth, which is that he didn't take All Might's warning seriously enough, which got him hurt. All Might asks what it felt like, and Midoriya said it felt like an egg exploding in the microwave. All Might tells him if that's the analogy he wants to use, then imagine lowering the wattage or cooking it slower. Don't try to use too much power or you might overdo it. And with that, Midoriya begins to prep for round 2 of the festival. Midoriya gets the exact same team as he did in the anime and manga with the cavalry battle. So the team was Tokoyami, Mei Hatsume, Ochako Uraraka, and Midoriya, obviously. And it plays almost the exact same except for the final part. While Midoriya and Todoroki have their stare down, Ida uses his reciprocal burst to take Midoriya's headband, and Midoriya begins to panic. He suddenly remembers everyone's intentions for why they want to win the sports festival. Midoriya decides to use his quirk, and they come up with a plan. Midoriya tells Tokoyami to use Dark Shadow to hit the floor, and when he does that, large rebel flies everywhere. They charge towards Todoroki, and as they get closer, Todoroki uses his fire on accident, which Midoriya was prepared for. With his hands, he hits Todoroki's right arm with the rebel, using the levitation quirk, which sends his arm flying back. And he uses his fire quirk at its lowest ability and shoots fire at Todoroki's left to melt the ice on his arm and grab 3 headbands. He looks at all of them and realizes he didn't grab the 10 million headband, but grabbed enough to stay in the top 4. As he tries to go for the last headband anyway to eliminate Todoroki, the timer runs out. Todoroki gets first, Bakugo places second, and Midoriya places third, and Shinso, the brainwashing guy, places fourth. As Todoroki looks shocked, Midoriya and his team start cheering him on. With that, everyone gets ready for round 3 of the tournament. Todoroki pulls Midoriya over and warns Midoriya that he will not use his fire side and that it was a one-time thing, so Midoriya shouldn't get too excited or expect him to do it again. With that, round 1 of the tournament stays the exact same, with the winners ending in the exact same order. For those wondering how Midoriya beat Shinso, the brainwashing guy, when Midoriya yells at Shinso for insulting Ojiro, he accidentally shot fire, which immediately hurts his throat enough to snap him out of the brainwashing before it can fully take over, and the fire barely grazes Shinso, which burns his arm enough to the point where he can't handle the fight and forfeits. Now for round 2 of the tournament, Ochako and Bakugo's fight plays the exact same, with Bakugo winning the fight. But now it is time for the main event, Todoroki versus Midoriya. Midoriya prepares his throat and Todoroki readies his ice, and with that the round starts. Midoriya begins to breathe fire at the lowest capacity he can without hurting his throat because he doesn't want to accidentally activate One for All, and melts the ice. Todoroki decides to send a lot more ice towards Midoriya, which he melts some of it, but sees that there is too much ice. Midoriya uses his fire breath again, but to keep himself from getting trapped in the ice, he shoots it at the floor from an angle so he can propel himself away from the ice. He realized at that moment that he cannot win this fight unless he outlasts Todoroki, and that ensues for a while until Todoroki finally manages to trap Midoriya with a sliver of ice. Midoriya begins to panic and finally decides to use One for All. He gets his fist ready and remembers All Might's words, and with that, he yells, "Smash!" The audience is amazed and begins to pay closer attention to Midoriya, because for some weird reason he has 3 quirks, which has never been seen before. Everybody starts muttering about this, and everybody has nothing but shock, including Todoroki. Todoroki yells at Midoriya asking how it's possible for him to have 3 quirks, and Midoriya decides to yell back stating that he doesn't know. He says this to try to hide the secret of One for All. Then yells that everybody is giving it their all and he should too. Todoroki stands there in shock and asks Midoriya if his dad told him to say this, but Midoriya tells him no, this is his own words and that he needs to take the fight more seriously. Midoriya starts to attack Todoroki but feels a huge pain in his arm and realizes that he broke it like All Might said he would, so he looks at the ground and the rebel everywhere and realizes what he must do. So he uses his non-broken hand to levitate the rebel towards Todoroki, which Todoroki blocks by freezing it. And at that moment, Midoriya lets loose. He breathes an all-out fire attack, burning his throat. At that moment, Todoroki creates a huge ice wall, which he knew would happen. So Midoriya keeps breathing until Todoroki gets tired out and cannot shoot any more ice. Midoriya gives him one good punch without using One for All and wins the fight. Now notice that Todoroki still hasn't used his fire side and still hates his father. Since Midoriya did not stall the fight as long as he originally did in the manga, and since Midoriya isn't upset with Todoroki about taking his quirk for granted since he's had a quirk since he was a kid, doesn't force it upon him as much as he did. Now back to the story. Recovery Girl heals Midoriya and doesn't say that she will stop healing him since this is the first time breaking a bone for One for All reasons. And with this throat, she just considers it an adjusting period, so she just disregards it. Now for Ida versus Midoriya, since Midoriya does win against Todoroki, Ida attempts to use the reciprocal burst on Midoriya. But Midoriya manages to burn the engines, sealing kind of like the gap for the speed, so he beats Ida that way. Later on, Ida finds out what happens to his brother like he does in the anime. The rest of the festival ends in the exact same way, with Bakugo taking first place. This is for several reasons. This happens because Midoriya is way too cautious about his quirks, since One for All really messed him up against Todoroki, so he doesn't use it as much as he should, and Bakugo just simply overpowers Midoriya. And with that, Midoriya gets second place in the festival, while Ida and Tokoyami tie for third. That's going to be it for this video. I realized while scripting this video that it took way too long. The video is super long, and I don't want to make this video like 15 to 20 minutes, so I decided to end it here. So if you guys enjoyed, be sure to like, favorite, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys so much for supporting this. See you guys in part 3, and peace out.